Hi everybody, welcome to Friday Night Knits. That's my new favorite knitting music. My name is Becky, and I am coming to you from Midland, Texas. This is my podcast about knitting, blythe, and other nerdy things. So, I am on Ravelry and Instagram as Becky Ray. That's BECKYRHAE. And I'm glad to be back. And I'm so flattered by the messages I got on YouTube and Instagram welcoming me back. I'm glad you guys, well, I'm not glad you guys missed me, but that kind of reaffirms that somebody other than myself and a few friends watched this. So if you're a returning viewer, thank you very much. If you are a new viewer, welcome to my silliness, and let's get on to things. Let's see, it's April 30th, it's a little afternoon, and it's been a fun week. I had a squirrel in my house on Monday. That was crazy. My blue heeler, my Aussie, knew it was there. Apparently it had been there all day while I was at work and either taunted them or something. I don't know. But usually when I let them out of their kennels, they're so excited to see you and they run up to me and they, you know, jump all over you and make you nuts. And Monday they went right past me into the kitchen and were trying to climb on cabinets, which they know they can't do. And I'm right there and they were doing it anyway. So yeah, I thought it might have been a mouse. Made them leave it alone, because I didn't see a squirrel for sure, and went back, was doing a few things, then I heard the dogs barking, and then I heard a squeaking, squealing sound. I ran up into the living room, and they had something, obviously, trapped under one of the sofas, and I shooed them away, made them sit, started looking around, and I saw a squirrel tail and was like, oh my goodness. So I tried to rig a net with a coat hanger and a pillowcase and tried to catch it. Wasn't very successful. And then I told the dogs, okay, I'm going to just lift up the couch. Y'all get it. And I lifted the couch and it ran off and Peyton ran after it. That's my blue heeler. And she caught it eventually in the Aussie's kennel. I don't know if she herded it into there, she chased it in there, or she picked it up and threw it in there. But I heard more squeaking and squealing and ran in there. Got her to leave it. She listened to me and got her out. Scooped it up with the net and was hoping it wasn't going to bleed everywhere. No blood, so she didn't get it that bad. Put it in a cardboard box and immediately hit Facebook and was like, what do I do? One of my friends told me to take it to a local vet that does rehab, so I called him to double check and gave it about an hour in a closed, you know, a cardboard box in the dark to either recoup from the shock or to die. You know, luckily it seemed to have recouped from the shock, and I took it out to the vet hospital. And they said they would rehab it and then release it in the area, because they did ask where I lived. So that was interesting. My goodness. I had a breakfast burrito this morning, so I'm drinking horchata, which, if you're not familiar with it, it's made with rice, milk, cinnamon, sugar. So good. It's a favorite in Mexico. It's really good, with a few shots of espresso in it too. So that was my Monday. Tuesday was a little better, but it was right after work, was taken up with taking the older dog to the vet for checkup again. And then Wednesday was knit night, so I didn't seem to get much knitting done like I thought I would. So I think podcasting every 2 weeks will be a good thing for me. Y'all will see more progress. So let's go ahead and jump right into what I'm knitting, and this is my only work in progress. Sorry, I've got my notes and the pattern I'm going to show y'all here in a second. Try to set it up there. So, my only whip is my Find Your Fade. And I forgot to be a good podcaster last week and put my progress keeper on, but I got about an inch done. And I've put a progress keeper on this morning, so I did a couple of rows before I podcast, so, or a row, I think. So next week, y'all should see some definite distance between where I am and this little doodad. Still on the salted caramel. I did skein up the Lolo Did It. So this is my Lolo Did It in Lolo's Favorite, which is an MCN. And the colorway is Kiss a Wookie. And I'll admit, winding this up, especially when I got to the end, and I'd gotten run into by the dog, so I stopped, and it got a little wonky on the skein winder, so I took it off and on the ball winder and finished it up by hand, just wrapping it around the outside. And that MCN running through my hands was rather nice, guys. I'll admit it. Cashmere is pretty yummy, but I will have to let y'all know how that goes once I have knit with it, because that's usually when it really starts to itch. And I just think it's going to be really pretty next to that. And will lead into the darker end of the fade very nicely. So that's kind of all I've worked on. I did do a swatch for another pattern. I have 2 babies I want to knit for coming up. One is due within a couple weeks. I was making a baby surprise, and I decided I didn't want to make them a baby surprise anymore. A big part of that is I was making a smaller size baby surprise, and the baby's due within 2 weeks, and it's going to be too hot for a sweater. So I ditched that, and I found the pattern that I'm going to use because one of my knitting friends from my group is pregnant, and she's due early November, and that gave us all baby knitting startitis, and we all want to just cover this baby in hand knits. One of her friends on Facebook said, well, it's really a shame that you knit, because now what am I going to do for you? And she was like, no, you're gonna send me hand knits, because there's no such thing as too many hand knits. And the one pattern I found, and I showed her and she loved it, is Mavis. This is a paid for pattern on Ravelry. It is by Karen Borrel, but I think it's actually published under Oomieknits, O-O-M-I-E knits. I'll double check that, and I'll put it down here so y'all can find it, because it's precious. I can't remember how much it was. I think it was $6 or $9, but it's 3 pieces. It's the Pixie Hat, the cardigan, and the romper. And I think it's suitable. We don't know what Azar's having yet. I think it's suitable for a boy or a girl, because I'm going to do very gender neutral colors, mostly probably gray for the jacket and for the sweater and the hat, and a nice, I think maybe mustard is what I'm leaning for Azar's baby. And that'd be fine on a boy or a girl. And for my coworker, I want to do a gray and a purple, because she likes purple. There's the hat with the braid, the cardigan with the braids down the front, and the romper is really sweet. And I think it'll be gender neutral enough. I mean, my daughter would have worn something with dinosaur buttons on it or something, so I think these days, really, you don't need to knit things pink or blue to make it boy or girl. You can knit your favorite colors and put whatever kind of stuff you want on it, because people are more open to gender neutrality on clothes and colors, and I mean, my daughter loved when she was a baby and little kid, and as a grown adult, loved all the dinosaurs and the bugs and the creepy crawlies, and she's a girl, so I was fine with that. So I was originally going to get online and look for some Debbie Bliss Cashmerino, because that's one of my favorite baby knitting yarns, but I saw an ad by my local store, my local yarn shop. They're going to have a huge sale through the month of May. So I'm going to hit them up first and hopefully find some non-acrylic nice baby yarn to use. Because non-acrylic, non-cotton, nice baby yarn. Because I know she used to have it. Maybe she'll still have some. If not, then I'll get online. But it's so good, I'm going to hit up local first. So I'm skipping in a Weebs. Webs is having a good sale right now, but I'm going to skip it. So that's it for what I'm knitting. I'm going to have a new section to the show called Goals, and I am stealing this from my friend Alicia. She has a podcast called DeHart House Podcast, and she's a new member of our knitting group, and she's awesome. And she always talks about goals in her knitting podcast, and I think that's a great thing to do, is to set something for y'all to see next time, and or at least something. So she has running in her goals. I'm not going to have running in my goals. Mine will be directly involved in probably the podcast or this room or something of the like. So goal number 1 is to be finished with color 5 or well into color 5, which is, again, the Lolo did it on my Find Your Fave. The second goal is to pick the colors for a So Faded sweater. I'm still not sure if we are going to do a knit along with my local group. But I know Alicia, myself, and Franny are all interested. And maybe if we don't do a knit along, since Alicia and I both podcast, I can see if she wants to do some kind of knit along with me. Like she and I doing it at least, and both having it on the podcast. I think that would be fun. But again, my colors that I really liked last week that I showed y'all was all started with the hula hoop hedgehog that I bought at DFW Fiberfest, and then adding some that I had in my stash, taupe on the top, black bell in the middle, and exploding peacock, or electric peacock, exploding peacock. So these are all ones I've had around, but this is really bright, and the more I think about it, as much as I love super bright shawls, I'm not sure I would like a super bright sweater, because I told y'all last week I'm all about gray these days, so I may just dig through my stash for some grays. I should have pulled these before. The Holy Crow I showed y'all last week. I'm not going to reach up there and dig that out. I'll post a picture on Instagram. The Holy Crow, I have another one to show, that couple of it from recent acquisition. I have Jinx in a gray. I have the Coal Miner from Long Dog Yarn. So I have a lot of grays that I can add to it, and I think that's maybe what I'm going to go for. I'm going to do the cropped sleeve version, but I'm going to make the bottom longer, so I'll probably still use 4 colors instead of just 3, and do a final fade, you know, just at the bottom to add a little more length, because I don't want a cropped sweater, because I don't want what would hang out from under a cropped sweater to hang out. So that's goal number 2. Goal number 3 is my craft room is once again a huge mess. So by probably not next month or next podcast, but hopefully by my birthday, I have it all organized and can show y'all kind of around. But by next week, I want to have at least one section done. Like, put a dent in it because it's horrible. My big plan is to get this hutch out that I was going to get out last summer. Get it moved out and bring in a buffet that my mom is saving for me. So that I have not this big thing in the way and can put more art and hang more yarn on the walls and stuff. So, yeah. So those are my goals. I think they're pretty achievable because there's not half a marathon in there. So let's talk about acquisitions. I haven't been buying too much, but I did get a new project bag on Wednesday night. Alicia also, she podcasts and she sews and she knits and she crochets and all kinds of things, and she's a math professor to boot. So she brought up her bags to show us on Wednesday night, and I was the first one there, so I got to pick first, and this is what I got. I love it, all the coffee and spice, and it's she had 2 Star Wars bags, and I chose this one over a Star Wars bag because I don't have a coffee bag. I have a bunch of Star Wars bags, so I'll get a Star Wars eventually. And I may give her my material that I have been hoarding and see if she'll sew me something with them. So, her bags, cutesy cutesy. She makes this size, which is a medium sock size. She makes little notion pouches, and she makes sweater sizes. And they're extremely reasonably priced. She's on Etsy as DeHart House Creations. One of her cute little things is she puts a D-ring on the inside. And at first I told her, I said, oh, cool, a yarn guide. And she said, well, that's actually for all of her accessory pouches, notion pouches, have a clasp on them, you know, with a little short handle and a clasp, and that's to hook that to. And so it's like a removable pocket because she doesn't put pockets in her bags. And it was just, it's brilliant. The 2 pouches that she makes them either completely flat with just all material, or she does one that has a little bottom, so it'll stand up, and those are the clear plastic on the bottom and then the material on top. Very cute. And she had one, and I almost grabbed it, but then I decided that I would just get one bag because a lot of people were coming that night. I didn't want to be too much of a grabby hands. So I chose this bag, and I love it. The handle is a sneak peek of what the inside looks like. So she does this coordination very well, and it's super well made, a medium interfacing, and like I said, very inexpensive. So you should check her out on Etsy and check her out on YouTube and watch her podcast as well, because she's a lot of fun. I'm catching up on hers, and her fade is finished, but since I'm catching up on her podcast, I'm watching her work on it right now, and it's kind of cool. It's really neat. So I'm gonna sit Homer over here because she was sitting on some things, and show you the yarn that I bought while on hiatus. Not really on purpose, but on my hiatus. So the first is from Long Dog Yarns, and this color is called Through the Woods, and this is the reason I bought these colors. I love her label. She posted on Instagram, and it's this beautiful olivey green with light green and kind of grayish, and then these purple flecks and bright green flecks, and so yummy. So Through the Woods, and it is on her twist, which is a 75-25 superwash merino nylon blend. I got another on the twist base, which is this 221B Baker Street. So it is a Sherlock Holmes inspired colorway, which I don't watch the BBC Sherlock Holmes. I don't watch Doctor Who either. So I'm not that big of a nerd. I mean, I can never seem to find the BBC shows on when they're on. So I've never watched any of those. I figure one of these days I will have to, and that binge will be so ginormous that y'all won't see me for a while. So that's, I think my brain is saving that for another day, another lifetime maybe. But this is really nice. It's this pale rust to some dark rust splotches, grayish blue almost with navy spots, and beautiful. So I really like this as well. Thinking this could be nice in a fade. And then the last one is on the Bounce Base, which is 100% superwash merino. And this is Dark Dimensions. And this would definitely go with some grays in a fade. See, I could have some bright color, but gray. So y'all, I'm going to work on some pictures and put it on Instagram for stuff and talk to my friends and figure out what we're doing. So I love this. It's so pretty. So pretty. So that's what I got from Long Dog. And, you know, if you're going to order one from Canada, might as well get a few. So the shipping makes sense. And those are all of my acquisitions. So, last but not least, I guess, maybe last, I might talk about dolls, depending on where I got. I'll at least tell you about him. Is Knit Night Shenanigans, or why I never get any knitting done around my friends. Because I go to Knit Night with every intention of making some progress. And then I talk. And I can't talk and knit at the same time. Not like really talk and knit. Which is why I don't knit on the podcast, because I maybe could do vanilla socks. Maybe. But I look at my knitting a lot. And it's my Zen thing. I'm like, I don't know. I might try it sometime, but it could be scary. So anyway, back to Knit Night with friends. I worked on my fade, got a row or two done, sat with with Alicia and Allison, and I showed Allison which bag I got. She picked a bag. We talked a little, ate, drank coffee, and then Ulfa got there, and I've been helping Ulfa with her first pair of socks for herself. She's doing self-striping socks from mustache yarn with some mustache yarn, and we put an waist yarn for an afterthought heel last week, and this week she had gotten to the point where she needed to start her toe decreases. She had a pattern with toe decreases in it, and it had some weird wording, but not that weird. I just read it and kind of said, okay, yeah, well, this is what they want you to do. So do this, and kind of explain to her, don't, you know, just do it this way kind of thing. Because it was the way she was reading it, she was doing it magic loop, and it was written for 4 double points, so it seemed like there was a lot more to do. So she was a little confused on that. So got her straightened out on toe decreases. So she decreased a row, I think she decreased twice. And was like, okay, I get it. She put it away, and she pulled out the project she really needed help on. She was working on a pattern called Gilead, which is for Quince & Co. Sparrow. It's a tunic sweater, well, kind of boxy, you know, lightweight, because it's made out of Sparrow, which is linen. And a friend of ours had already made one. So she had help because she could ask our friend Angela, but she hadn't been able to get a hold of Angela much lately. So she brought it to knit night hoping we could help her figure it out. And I got caught up in how poorly I think it was written. It's certainly not written for a newer knitter. What you're doing is not beyond like just intermediate or even beginner intermediate, but it is a garment, so you know, sweaters are a little more to intermediate at least. And it assumed I guess it assumed a lot, was what I had problems with. Was I understand now, looking back, when I was first knitting and I would get a pattern, and I had friends that would get patterns and they would look at them, and then they would immediately pull out a notebook and rewrite the pattern, like row by row kind of thing. And I always thought, boy, that's crazy. Why would you do that? You've already got the pattern right there. But then I've read some patterns and went, oh, that's why we do that. So this was kind of one of those patterns, and I was more focused on how just the words instead of what I should have been focused on, which was the math. And it was not making sense to me. My brain could not wrap itself around what they were trying to tell you, because it seemed so poorly communicated to me. And we all got a little frustrated, and I was like, okay, I would just increase this way for, you know, this long until you get to the stitch count they want you to get to, and then stop, and then measure it, because you should have about a length this long. If you don't, we're going to have to really figure out what's going wrong. But I think you could do this. And she'd already ripped it out a few times and started over a couple of times, so she was feeling a little defeated. And I was like, but it's okay, Alpha, it's linen, so just think that every time you rip it out and reknit it, it's getting softer. I was trying to find a good in there. And the next section had increases for shaping, and on one side they wanted her to do the backwards loop cast on, which she understood, and the other side was a cable cast on. She said, I don't know how to do a cable cast on. I said, well, it's very similar to a knit cast on. And that kind of led us into something completely different, not the sweater, not that pattern, but then we got on a kick of cast-ons and got to talking about different cast-ons, and not a whole lot of different cast-ons. We started with a knit cast-on, which all of them knew, because a lot of them were taught how to knit by my friend Franny, and Franny teaches almost everyone the knit cast-on first thing, because it's pretty brilliant. Teach them that, and they already, by putting that number of stitches on a needle, they've already learned how to do a knit stitch. So that's kind of how Franny looks at it. So almost all the people she's taught to knit know the knit cast on. And then they all knew the backwards loop, which I personally hate. I see its uses in patterns where you have to add stitches in the middle of a row or something, but that cast on always looks the worst to me when I have an object and I'm working on it. If I did that cast on to start with and I look at my edge later, I'm like, God, that's an ugly edge. And I want to always go in there and tighten it up somehow, or make it just look prettier somehow. So started with those two. And I was like, well, the cable cast on is just like a knitted cast on, except you're going through the two stitches between them instead of making a knit stitch. You're going through these. So I'm showing them as and I had pulled out extra yarn from my fade and, you know, stuffed my fade down to the middle of my circular needles and was doing these cast-ons for them. I've really got to start carrying, you know, like size 6 needles and worsted weight yarn in my knit night bag so that I can demonstrate things. And so that led from those two cast-ons, the knitted cast-on, the cable cast on to what is a good stretchy one, because Lisa was about to start mitts. And I said, well, I do the stretchy long tail cast on. And none of them understood long tail cast ons because they said they were confusing. And well, I guess Alicia had used them a time or two probably, but I was talking about, you know, and making how you make sure you have enough yarn, because my friend Sue, who first taught me how to read patterns and stuff, was like my first teacher, taught me to pull out like 2 inches of yarn and then take your 2 needles, wrap them sit them on top of each other, and wrap your yarn around, you know, not super tight, but loosely around your needles, the number of stitches that you need to cast on, and then like pick up from there. And that's pretty much where you can do your long tail cast on. You'll have enough yarn. Won't have an excessive tail, or, you know, no tail, not be short. And when I do that for my super stretchy, and then I add a couple more inches still before I pick my center spot to start doing it. So that led to just us talking about all kinds of different cast-ons, and I told him about the weirdest cast-on I've ever done, or the most complicated. It's really not that complicated, it's just a process. I did a lot of catboardy Mobius knitting about 10 years ago, 12 years ago, when I first started hanging out with my old knitting group, and we had a guild, and we would, once a month, someone would come in and teach something to everybody, and I came in and showed them a Mobius cast on once, and that led to me giving several Mobius classes at the yarn shop. So we discussed that, and I had to show them, Olfa and Lisa, what a Mobius was. So I found a piece of paper in my bag and tore off a long strip and went and taped it with the twist in it. Showed them it was one-sided, the whole fun thing about Mobius. And that just led to all the math talk with Alicia and them, and how fun math can be in knitting. It can be annoying too, but how fun it can be. And I got really excited, and it really kind of made me want to come home and dig out all my catboardy stuff and look at it, because I loved her stuff when I was first knitting. It was unusual and cool. So I found my 2 books. I'm going to take them with me next Wednesday to show Alicia. And I looked to see if I had any of my Mobius knitting still, and I had one bag, but the really cool bag I made for a friend, I contacted her, and she had given it to another friend, and so I couldn't get my hands on the really cool one, which is a jester bag that Catboardy has in book The Second Treasury of Magical Knitting, but this is the jester bag, and I want to make another one because it's so cool. But see, that bag right there is similar to the one I'm about to show y'all, where the strap is a Mobius, and then you basically, like you do an afterthought heel, while you're knitting the Mobius, you put in some scrap yarn and come back and open that up and knit the bag out of that part. So okay, so this is a smaller version. This has been hanging up in my kitchen off of a stand forever, so it's probably pretty filthy, but the strip is right here, this Mobius strip right here. So I was going to show y'all, this is our beginning point. So if you're not aware, a Mobius strip is a one-sided object. So this is actually one side, not counting the thick part, but this is all, the edge is all one edge. Yeah, okay, so I'm going to show you. So we're going to start right here, and I'm not going to pick up this hand. So we're going to slide, and we're going, and we're going, we're going. Right here you'll see a twist, see? We're going to come around to this edge of the purse, the opening of the purse. And So we're going back up the handles. And when I get right about here, you should see that, oh, I must have swapped it right there. I totally just fouled that up. Let me try it again. I must have grabbed the wrong side when it got twisted on me. Okay, let me try this one more time. We're gonna go around. Around, 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 around. Don't pick up your hand, Becky. There you go. See, there it is right there. Back down the strap to the bag again, and then right here, we're back. So, the edge of that Mobius. Fun, fun, silliness. But when I first started knitting, that's what I needed. I needed something that was a little odd because I didn't want to feel like, maybe I was worried about feeling like a grandma or something and knitting like, I didn't want to be knitting like cozies and doilies and that kind of thing. So I looked for all the weird, odd things to do. And I love math anyway, so the construction of this blew me away. And I got way into it, made a whole bunch of them. Like I said, did some classes. I made a lot of bowls and cat beds and that kind of thing. Way fun stuff. And I don't have any of it to show y'all because I gave it all away. But I think that might have to be an ongoing project soon, is to make another jester bag with some crazy different colored yarn and then felt that sucker up and show you how cool it is. So it's fun knitting. But yeah, so that got me on the cat boardy trick bandwagon, and we talked and talked and talked about it till it was time to go. And then I got in my car and I started to drive home. And it might have been because we had talked about Mobius and we'd ended a discussion on math. I'm not sure, but I got in my car and Rob Zombie was playing and I was jamming out to Rob Zombie, and I was driving down the road and my brain brought that pattern back into mind. And I was going down the road and I did the math because I knew what the stitches we were supposed to have, the stitches we started with, and how many times they wanted to increase, and my brain went, well, duh. Yeah, trust math. Always trust the math. Always trust the math. And I was so excited that I figured it out. Once I got home, because, you know, can't text and drive. Once I got home, I didn't even get out of my car. I whipped my phone out and excitedly messaged Olfa and was like, I figured it out, I figured it out. Should have done the math first. Should have worked with the math. So you do this, this, and this, and boom, there you go. Proper number of increases, the proper distance, the proper blah, blah, blah. Blah. That's what they meant. That's what they were trying to communicate in that one paragraph. And she was excited that I figured it out and was ready to. In fact, she jokingly said, yay, I'm going to finish the back this week and I will need your help with the lattice lace on the front next week. So trust the math, guys. There's a commercial on my local radio station right now that irritates the crap out of me because it says something about the answer is always 7. And if you don't agree with me, that's, you know, you're wrong. And I'm like, no, the answer is not always 7. That's not how math works. So I'm really kind of surprised that I'm not sure what I had going on, that my brain didn't go straight to the math right away, which it usually does. But I must have just been sidetracked. But I was glad I figured it out for her. So, trust the math. And that's all I got knitting-wise for you guys. So we've got a few more minutes because I kind of want to keep this So around 45 minutes. Let me talk about this guy. This is my Abominable Snowman. And he was made by my friend Austin Edwards, or Austin Darling on Instagram. And he did a whole lot of these monsters. And he's just recently back in my possession. I actually sent him home to Austin for a little while, back to Portland, because Austin was being headhunted by a stop motion movie company, and they wanted to see some of his work, and he had sold most of his work. He had a commission list, but he also did most of what he had made. He'd sold or given away to make money. And I got this guy several Christmases ago, and I love him. Austin molded. He made the teeth. Those aren't real teeth. Those are made by Austin, but they look real. God, they're creepy, but they're cute too. And he, sculpted the fingernails and sewed him. And his legs rotate a little. His arms are on wire, and he's just awesome. And it's so funny, the box he came in, Austin drew a picture of him on the outside of it. And when Austin had contacted me about this company headhunting him to see if he could borrow him for a little while, he was like, I'll pay shipping, blah, blah, blah. I was like, okay, let me see if I can find a box. And I was almost certain I didn't throw that box away, because I'm a bit of a hoarder of cardboard boxes. And sure enough, it was back in the back room at the house. And so I was like, look, I even have this. So he went back to Austin in his original box with his portrait on it, and then came back to me again in that box. And he was, when I got him, I had purchased something from my friend Kyle that makes the button arcade dresses, because they're all in Portland. All the cool people are in Portland. I wish I was in Portland, or Seattle, or Chicago, or even Austin. Sometimes I think it's time to get out of this little bitty West Texas town, but now my husband's got he's really excited about his another job, so as long as he's excited about his work, we'll stay here. Like I said, he got shipped back to me when Austin sent him, and it was just, I was so glad to have him back. And he's a little bit creepy, but he's really, really cool. I like I have tulips that bloom in the spring. Well, they didn't bloom this year, so I might have to get new bulbs, but they were bright orange red tulips. And I have pictures of him in the tulips, and it just cracks me up. And every time I see that picture come back up in my feed or something, I can hear Tiny Tim in my head tiptoeing through the tulips. I think that's all I got for y'all guys, so I'm gonna call it a day. Fisher's here, dressed up in something new. She's in cool groovy pattern, so she's still hanging out with me, still loving her with her awesome red hair. And I think last week, I'm pretty sure, I said my friend who made her is Catherine or Kate Harding. It's not. It's Hardin. She doesn't have a G on the end of her name. So I tried really hard. I don't even remember if I put it up wrong on the screen, but in my show notes, I at least spelled it right. So y'all should check her out too. She's got some really cute dolls in her shop right now. Really, really cute dolls. I'm so glad I don't have a lot of money on my hand. A lot of spending money on my hands these days, because I would buy more of her dolls because they're precious. And I think that's going to be it. So I'm going to head out of here. It's a nice cool day in West Texas. I'm going to go put my feet up and knit some more. So y'all have a fabulous afternoon, and I will see y'all in a couple weeks.